Welcome to the Emisarios Unidos de Luz channel. If you enjoy this near-death experience story, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. My NDE began when a truck driver, not realizing that traffic was slowing ahead of him, collided with my vehicle. I remember how time seemed to slow down in the moments before the collision, and in those moments, I remember thinking that I was about to die. The truck hadn't yet impacted with my vehicle when I left my body, and at the moment of my leaving, it was as if time had come to a complete halt. I remember how everything was suddenly quiet, and how a love of an enormity that eludes description suddenly permeated my being. I remember the panic I felt, but moments before, it was replaced with an overwhelming and inexorable calm, and I knew instinctively that I was in the presence of God. I could feel that there were two others with me, and I don't know how I knew, but I knew that one of them was my grandmother. I was overwhelmed with emotion to experience the love of God. Although I did believe in God, I was very angry with Him and blamed Him for the suffering and abuse that I experienced as a child at the hands of my parents. However, after coming face to face with God during my NDE and experiencing the magnificence of God's boundless love, it made me realize how much I cared that God did indeed exist. Damn, I was wrong to accuse God so harshly, I lamented. My child, worry not. Everything is just fine, God reassured. Indeed, I did feel like a child cradled in God's loving and gentle arms in a very safe and warm place. It was then that images of my life began to appear before me as I began to experience a life review. During the review, I could feel the joy and happiness my loving actions conferred upon the lives of others, knowingly and unknowingly, and I could feel how appreciably those actions pleased God. I am so proud of you, God rejoiced, and His elation filled me with a joy and happiness that I had never before experienced. My jubilation dwindled, giving rise to feelings of hurt and shame when I reviewed those actions that caused others pain. I did expect in some measure that God would judge me for my hurtful actions, and yet, all I felt during the life review was God's unwavering compassion. What different choices could you have made? God asked me in His infinite patience. During the life review, I was astonished to realize how precious I was to God, and the most difficult aspect of the review was accepting God's implicit forgiveness. Before the NDE, I would criticize and disparage myself, and I imagined that God regarded me with similar disdain. Why would I go through all the trouble to make you just the way you are if I wanted you to try and be like someone else? By minimizing and condemning yourself, you are blocking my love, He explained. God wanted me to be more accepting and forgiving of myself, and in doing so, I would be able to reflect upon myself and my life with a greater degree of honesty and clarity. God understands and accepts that you will err in the same way you understand and accept when your children commit errors. You may not be pleased when they commit those errors, but that doesn't mean that you love them any less for committing them. You accept that they will err from time to time, and you understand why when they commit them. You love and forgive them regardless, and you don't judge them or hold grudges against them, He reminded. God showed me that I was killing my children through my harshly spoken words, and I felt the pain that they felt. I felt that I had failed in my duty as a parent, but the worse I felt, the more I would feel God's love and compassion. I asked God why He had given me abusive parents, and He showed me how I chose everything that I would experience during my life, prior to my birth. In what God revealed to me, it became clear that I had to experience all that I did in order to learn what I needed to learn to be able to live my purpose on earth. I realized that many of my choices were not for my highest good because I wasn't listening to the guidance being given or because I wasn't trusting my intuition, and I was doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing rather than what my intuition was guiding me to do. I received the knowledge that Earth is a school, and at the end of life, we take a final exam, the life review, before graduating and returning home. The lessons were so simple, and all that was revealed to me made perfect sense. I understood that life is all about love. It is about accepting God's love by loving and accepting ourselves, and about sharing that love with others. God showed me what part of my mission on earth remained for me to complete, yet He gave me the choice of whether to continue with my mission or to stay with Him. Do you want to stay or go back? He asked. I decided that I would return to Earth because I wanted so desperately to fix the hurt that I caused others, and I didn't want to leave so many things incomplete. I also wanted the opportunity to live days of my life in the knowledge of God's unconditional love for me. I have to go back, I said, and it was in that instant that the whole experience ended and I returned to an awareness of my body in the car, with the truck in my rear view mirror about to collide with my vehicle. I became aware that my hands were gripping the steering wheel tightly, yet I could feel that God's love was with me. "Take your foot off the brake and floor the gas pedal," I heard a voice in my head say. Without thinking, I hit the gas pedal, driving the car in front of me safely into the median strip. I drove about 30 meters more before driving the car safely into the median strip. Even an hour after the accident, I continued to feel immersed and cradled by God's love, but as time went on, the NDE became like the memory of a dream I once had. As the details of the NDE began to fade, I wondered if it was something that I actually experienced or if it was indeed just a dream. Even today, I can't remember why I chose to return to Earth or what I had left to complete, but I do remember being certain that there was so much that I had yet to complete. Given that my recollections are vague at best, since the NDE I have lived with the deep conviction of God's unconditional love for me, and the experience has transformed my life profoundly. Now, when I am faced with those situations that I find very challenging, I stop momentarily to decide what is the best way to proceed, because I don't want to experience the hurt and regret that I experienced during my life review or any life review that I may experience in the future. The year after the accident was one of the hardest years of my life, and I often wondered if I had made the right decision in deciding to return to Earth. Now, though, when I look back at what I have learned and when I reflect upon the ways my life has been blessed since the NDE, I am so glad that I came back. My outlook on life has changed since the NDE, and I tend to see life as an adventure or a wonderful game, and I tend to approach my life playfully. When I see the rays of the sun stream through the clouds, however, I'm reminded of God, and it makes me homesick. The sun's rays I see as God reminding me to remember how much He loves me, that I'm never alone, and that one day I'll return to be with Him forever. 2 days after the accident, I went to church. Before the Mass, a lady I know came up to me and asked me about my accident, and I told her about my NDE. "Who was with you during the NDE?" she asked me. "God and my grandmother," I replied. "Who else?" she asked. I was very reluctant to tell her, but I told her about my mystery friend from the other side. I was relieved that the lady didn't regard me as a crazy person, and I could tell by her questions that she did indeed believe that NDEs were real. "You can find out the name of your mystery friend by asking," she said, but at the time, I didn't really consider her words. Some weeks later, after Mass, someone else asked me about the accident, and as I related my NDE to her, she told me about the NDE that she had, and she too mentioned that I could ask to find out the name of my mystery friend. Trusting their advice, I began to ask the name of my mystery friend each day. I gave up trying, however, when the answer wasn't forthcoming, thinking that I must not be asking in the right way. 7 years later, I was watching a television program about near-death experiences and spirit guides from the other side. They explained a different method for asking for a name, so that night, as I lay in bed, I asked out loud to be given the name of my mystery friend in a dream. When I woke the following morning, I was vaguely aware of a conversation I had last night when the name of my mystery friend popped into my head. Against my skepticism, the voice in my head insisted that that was indeed the correct name. Most of my otherworldly family and friends all have names now, and some have more than one. I find these days that the more I am open to the possibility of help from the other side, the more help I am given. I also stopped trying to explain things with reason and rationality like I used to, as I became increasingly comfortable that it wasn't necessary to know how things worked in order to believe that seemingly supernatural things were possible. I talked to my mystery friend in my waking state and also in my dream state. Her help has always been, and still is, priceless to me. I look forward to meeting with her again one day.